Well, OJ, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. It's a pleasure to get a chance to meet you and hear your story and really dive into things pre Miami Dolphins and what you're doing post Miami Dolphins as well. But we love to start the beginning with our guests. And for you, a kid from Ohio, you grew up, you played multiple sports. Tell us what that was like and how maybe, growing up in Ohio, playing at a high school just outside of Cleveland, how did that mold you into the player you became?
Yeah, I was born and raised basically in Marion, Ohio, and my mom and I moved to Cleveland when I was 12 or 13 years old, and that right there was one of the biggest changes in my life right away, going from a small town to a bigger city, and having more opportunities. Everything was really nice in Marion, Ohio. I'm not going to sit here and bash Marion, Ohio, but the competition had to step up for me in terms of everything, academically, athletically, and actually growing up as a young teen as well. And so my mom and I, we basically grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and that was very important for me. But back to what you were saying, I played all those sports in Marion, Ohio, got to Cleveland. I decided I wasn't going to play football because I was mad at my mom for making me move to Cleveland. She said, okay, all right, well, she knew that I would miss playing football. I started playing football when I was 5 years old. So she says, all right, she just knew that at some point I'd be like, you know what? Mom, I'm going to play football. And as soon as basketball season hit, Mike, I was back in the sports again, playing for the basketball team at Warrensville Heights, played for the baseball team there. And then, a couple of years after that, my mom said, well, you're going to a private school now. That's the school we were talking about outside of Cleveland, Hawken. I was mad again, of course, because now with more change, kids don't like change, man. We can't stand change. We like to be kind of set and settled in our ways, man. So, going to Hawken, another incredible move and decision by my mom, man. Just the people that I met there, the school that I went to, the opportunity to play the sports that I played there. It was special, man. And I encourage kids today, all kids today, living down here in South Florida, these kids play one sport and one sport only. And it drives me crazy. In Ohio, we had to go indoors at some point. So we go from football, we got to go indoors to basketball, or some of my teammates wrestled. Then finally the snow, thaws out and we get a chance to go back outside again. That's track and baseball. For these kids down here, a lot of times they just play one sport because they can play it all year round. And it's kind of, it doesn't make you the well-rounded athlete I think that these kids could be, because I think they pick a sport before they realize what the other sports are all about. And they might not pick the right sport for themselves. They might be a football player at 5 years old, and then when they get to be 18, they're not getting the scholarship offers or whatever, but they could have been playing baseball or lacrosse or something else that might have been, better suited for them, but also a better opportunity for them to get scholarships. So playing all the sports in high school, I played 4 sports in high school, and I loved every bit of it.
We talked to so many athletes, and it seemed like they thought they were going to go pro in a sport that they didn't go pro in. What was that your case, or did you think that football was always going to be that way for you to get to the next level?
Yeah, I actually I got drafted by the Angels too, so I had both opportunities. So I had football and baseball. I really thought that baseball would be my avenue. My mom hoped it would be my avenue, but football is my favorite sport, man. So, I was gonna, really, really just dive into being the best football player I could be. Really just to get a scholarship, Mike. I was just looking to get a scholarship in the college, get free education. And then when things started working out well there too, because I know my high school career was fun. We had a great time. I had some great teammates, great coach. But when I got to Penn State, it was like, man, I might be able to go pro at this sport that I love so much, man. And that's what I started grinding on, man. Just trying to, perfect my craft as a receiver, give myself some opportunities against big teams that we played against, the Notre Dames, the Miamis, the USCs, make sure I make plays in all the games out there. And I got a chance, man. So, yeah, I definitely was hoping to get drafted in the NFL for sure.
Well, take us back to the recruiting process, because you're an Ohio guy, so I'm sure you had a lot of opportunities to stay in that area, but then, you eventually go to Penn State. Why was it Penn State? Why was that the best fit for you?
Yeah, I was Ohio State through and through. I mean, my whole family is still Buckeye fans. Even though I went to Penn State, they're still Buckeye fans. I don't get it, but it's okay. It's okay. I was locked and loaded really to go to Ohio State. I really was. I used to watch Ohio State games on Saturday and then watch the replay on Sunday morning. That's how much I loved Ohio State. I was pretty much committed to go there. And then they fired Earl Bruce and they brought in John Cooper. And so the John Cooper hiring was the reason that more importantly, the Earl Bruce firing was the reason I decided to leave Ohio and give some of the other schools a chance. The Michigans, the Michigans, the Notre Dames, obviously Penn State, UCLA was another one that I looked at. But that was the reason I left Ohio, is because of Earl Bruce's firing.
Penn State, what was it about that? I mean, obviously a power in the Northeast. You start off without a conference, eventually go to the Big Ten during your time there. But what was it about Penn State?
You know what? I love the guys there. My visit was great. I had 2 visits there, one unofficial, one official, and they were both just great visits. Of course, you got the great Joe Paterno there as the head coach. Matter of fact, when I came back from my UCLA visit, that Monday morning, I got a FedEx letter. As a FedEx package from Joe Paterno. It was a letter, 7-page letter from Joe Paterno on spiral notebook paper, talking about the pros and cons of going to Penn State, And he laid it all out for me, man. Like, and everything he was saying is what I was talking about. The opportunity to play baseball was one of those things in there. How we're going to get you. You're going to get your degree. You're going to play some big time football, possibly play for a national championship. He didn't promise anything in the letter, but he laid out what my path could be by going to Penn State, man. And it kind of solidified my situation there, man. I just love Coach and what he said to me and what he meant to me and how our relationship grew from my freshman year all the way to my senior year was just incredible, man. And after that, definitely after I was done playing for Penn State, Joe Paterno was still a very important part of my life.
Yeah, you're looking at your progression, your last 2 years, probably your best 2 years. What was it about that? What helped you develop as much as you did to eventually attract the eyes of the NFL?
Yeah, I think Joe kind of changed his mindset a little bit about how they do things at Penn State. I mean, my first couple of years there, we might have thrown the ball in one game like 10 times. Me and Terry Smith, Coach Terry Smith now, we're just blocking. And then, in my class, we had this guy named Tony Sacca. And Tony Sacca was like a top quarterback out of New Jersey. And Joe said, hell, we got to throw the rock. This guy can sling it. So they started putting the ball in the air a little bit more. Then after that, we had Kerry Collins. And we started putting the ball in the air a little bit more. And I think the last 2 years, like Joe just adapted. Kind of like Don Shula did down here when he had, we had Zonka and Kick and Merck Morris. They ran the ball so much. And Greasy was a quarterback. But then when they got Dan Marino, what'd they do? They started putting that thing in the air because he had the quarterback with the arm. They had the weapons in the Marks brothers. I think the same thing kind of happened. Now, I'm not saying that me and Terry were the Marks brothers, at Penn State, but we had a quarterback that could sling the rock very well for us.
Yeah, and maybe if you don't, do you think maybe you don't get the looks to go to the next level? I mean, again, if Joe Paterno was still running the ball and didn't want to air it out when you were there, maybe you don't get that chance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, and then for us, we had to take advantage of every opportunity. So if you get 5 targets, you better come down with 4 or 5 catches because they were far and few between. And you're right. I mean, without that progression, into, a pass game or basically a more balanced attack, I think we went to, that was key for me for sure. But you know what? Joe did a great job, hopefully recognizing his weapons. After I left, Kijana Carter and those guys were running the ball around the yard again, back to running the football very well. Kerry Collins still throwing it, but they had Bobby Ingram and Freddie Scott. So they had some guys that could still catch it, but they were running the ball a lot more compared to what we were. Joe did a great job, and Fran Ganner, our offense coordinator, did a great job of adapting to the talent and using it to the best of their ability.
I'm sure you've got several games that really stick out in your mind, but take us to the Fiesta Bowl for you. You were the offensive MVP, a win against Tennessee. Is that one of the games when you look back at your career that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, absolutely, because we were there all week with those guys from Tennessee, and they were talking so much trash, man. I mean, from day one, they were talking trash. We couldn't wait to get on the field against those guys, and they got out to a nice little start against us, but then we just railroaded them. I mean, it was like, we were so mad coming out. They had this big old barbecue, and they were on stage, and they were talking a lot of trash and what they were going to do to us and this and that. And look, we're Penn State, man. We don't take that lightly. We didn't say much. We just want to show it on the field. And so to be able to go in that game and light them up, it was a lot of fun, man. We scored 3 or 4 touchdowns in 8 minutes. It seemed like it was so fast, man. We were just everything was clicking, and before you know it, the game was over, man. And I love the area. So yeah, Phoenix is a great area, and we had a blast kicking their butt there.
Yeah, 42-17, the final score. As you said, you played baseball during your time there as well, and you were drafted. How did you balance that? Because, it's one thing to do it in high school, but this is the highest level of college athletics, playing for Penn State football and then playing for baseball as well.
Yeah, that was one thing that Joe promised in that letter. I could play baseball. And he said that my freshman spring, I had to play football. So that's what I did. I did spring ball my freshman year. And then depending on my grades and everything else, he'd decide if I could play baseball, in the next, spring. And yeah, grades were good. I did enough on the football field, and he kept his promise, man. I got a chance to go there and play. I just played baseball for those 2 years, a year and a half, really. And it was great. It really was, man. Getting away from football a little bit while those guys were grinding in spring ball. Man, nobody wants to go through spring ball, man. Everybody wants an out from spring ball, especially back then. Nowadays, it's not as tough. But back then, spring ball was it was brutal. Full pads, every day for I don't know how many weeks we were allowed, man. It was crazy. So, yeah, it was great that I had a little break from football, and it made me still hungrier to go back out there and play football. I think that was the biggest thing. Kind of like in high school, if I played a sport all year round, you probably get burnt. My kids play baseball down here. I think they got burnt because we played a year round. I think that the fact that I got that break from football gave me that edge going into the fall every single year after that.
Yeah, you gladly go to the baseball diamond to give up spring ball. A lot of people probably would as well.
Right.
So again, you develop, football becomes your sport. 1993, you're drafted by the Dolphins. And you mentioned Don Shula. They've got Dan Marino. Take us through that moment, your draft day experience, and when you got that call from Miami.
Yeah, man, it was great. Well, the night before, I was at Penn State hanging out. I knew the draft was on. Our draft was at Sunday at noon, not like this Thursday night prime time thing they got going now. Our draft was Sunday at noon when it started. I knew I was projected to go somewhere in the 20s, mid to late 20s is where I was projected to go. And so I just kicked it at Penn State the night before because they had their spring game. They had their spring game that weekend, and I went up for the spring game, just hung out. And then I got up Sunday morning and drove back to Cleveland, Ohio. And so when I got home, my mom was like, "Babe, are you, she's, obviously asked if I was excited, and I was, but I was tired, Mike. We really had a good time on Saturday night, and I knew that I was going to get drafted. Sometime I was getting drafted that day, the next day, and I was just pumped, And so, so I laid on my mom's couch in the living room. Draft was on, and I took a nap, man. I took a nap. I was so tired. I said, "Mom, just wake me up by the 20th pick." You know what I mean? And so she woke me up by, around the 20th pick. And then, of course, 2021 come. I thought I was going 22nd to San Diego. That's what the rumors were. Okay. And then 22nd comes and goes. 23 comes. 24. I haven't gotten a phone call yet, Then all of a sudden I get a phone call. This is pick number 25 coming up, and it's Don Shula. And he's asking me, "Hey, would you like to be a Miami Dolphin?" I'm like, "Hell yeah. Who wouldn't want to be a Miami Dolphin?" And that was it. And then once you get that phone call, you're watching ESPN. You hear Chris Berman talking about, well, this pick, the Dolphins should take this guy or that guy, talking about Glenn Milburn out of Stanford. This is the pick for him, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm looking at the commissioner and I'm reading his lips. And I could read his lips saying O.J. McDuffie from Penn State. And I'm like, oh, it's on. It's on now, So then when they made the announcement, man, my mom and I went crazy, man. That dream, her moving me to Cleveland, her moving me to Hawkins, her letting me decide on what college to go to, all came into fruition, man. It was unbelievable the fact that I got drafted in the NFL, just a childhood dream, and I'd be able to share it with my mom in that moment. It was great. And so after that, we got in the car and we drove to my hometown of Marion, Ohio, and we got there at my Aunt Tara's house. The whole block was packed with people, man. It was absolutely insane that, this little town has produced somebody that's going to the NFL. And, nothing, hadn't proven anything yet, but I got drafted. And that was hard to do coming out of my small town. It was special.
Yeah, they should have announced your mom's name and all the decisions she made and get you to that point. It was her pick as well, right?
That's right, man. You're right.
Well, Don Shula, the draft is over. You report to the team. Tell us about your welcome to the NFL moment and when you realize, okay, this is a little bit different than maybe the college level.
Yeah, you talk about some grown men in a locker room. But here's the thing about it. Like I told you, I was just, back at Penn State. I still have my apartment there. And, so we were, playing Tecmo Bowl or, playing Madden. We're playing all these different games. Then you get to the NFL, you go in the locker room and there's Dan Marino, there's Irvin Fryer, there's Keith Jackson, all the guys you were just playing Madden with, in your dorm, and like, damn, you know what? I made it. I'm not just a fan of these guys. Now I'm one of those guys, and that was huge for me to see those guys live and in person, to realize that, I can do this, man. And that was important for me to have that type of confidence. But at first, you're you're like, you're starstruck a little bit, especially a guy like Dan Marino. I mean, Danny, man, he was the man for a long time by the time I got there. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and a couple of years, by your third year, you become a starter, and you become his main target during that time, a guy that he looked to a lot. So how did you build that relationship? As you said, he had already been there. He was a veteran guy. You're still coming into your own. How'd you build that relationship with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. He's a Pitt guy. I'm a Penn State guy. We didn't like each other naturally. That's just a natural, argument right there. We joke about that all the time. It was just about me being in my playbook, me being the guy that worked hard on and off the field, me being where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. Danny trusted me, and I trusted Danny, and that was the whole key. I hate to say it, but some guys be sleeping meetings, and Danny look around and see who it is. That guy's not going to get an opportunity in games. Mm-hmm. I made sure he knew I was wide awake, and I was pointing, letting him know, I see what you're saying here, Danny, and that rapport, man, gave me the opportunities that I got. The fact that he knew I was going to be where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. And that's how we had such a great relationship until the day he retired, for sure.
And you guys were consistent, but the head coaching job changed a little bit during your time, right? You went from Don Shula to Jimmy Johnson, eventually Dave Wannstedt as well. How do you deal with that as a player as well, with especially somebody like Shula, figurehead for that franchise for so many years?
Yeah, that was tough for a lot of guys that were Shula guys. Anytime you have a coaching change, the new guy, like in this case, Jimmy Johnson, he wants to bring in his guys. So for us, we have to show and prove all over again. We have to prove ourselves all over again. And that's what I did. I actually got a new contract under Jimmy Johnson, which was shocking because he's really a jerk, in my opinion, but that's another story. But I did get an opportunity to stay in Miami for a little bit longer until he quit again. And then Dave Wannstedt came along. But it's always a tough deal. When you get a new regime, when you get new head coaching changes, like you said, I had two of them in the pros. 2 changes in the pros. It was always tough, man. But with my work ethic and the way I played the game, I wasn't too worried about it. I just knew that, I just got to go out there and do what I do, and they'll be excited, hopefully, you'll keep me on board, re-sign me, hopefully not trade me, because who knows where you get traded. I mean, if you leaving Miami, I don't know where else I'd want to go. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know where else I'd want to go. Probably send me somewhere cold, and I'd be mad as hell,
So were you surprised that Jimmy Johnson gave you that extension? It seemed like a little tension with him there.
Well, our tension came at the end. You know what I mean? It really wasn't. I was, the kissing his butt, the whole time. I was being a model citizen the whole time to make sure that he knew I worked hard, played hard, bought into everything he was saying. I didn't really dislike Jimmy until after, after I played for him. Because I couldn't say it out publicly then. I can say it public now.
Well, despite that, you were the team MVP in 97 and 98. 98 probably your best career year. So what was it about those years and how your game was able to flourish and develop?
Yeah, I think that's the point that Danny and I just kept getting better and better together. The opportunities were always out there for me. And it's all that trust that I was talking about with Danny Boy. And I think that helped me out a lot. And I was just getting better, I think, in terms of the game was starting to slow down for me. I think that I just reading coverage, watching film, everything started getting better and better for me. So I think I was just more prepared for every single game than I'd ever been in those days. And the opportunities obviously got there. That's why I think I had the best years, those years, until I got hurt in 99. Yeah. I think that the 97, 98. And I always gloat that, I won the team MVP with Dan Marino on the team. That means a lot to me. You know what I mean? When you got Danny on the team and you win the offensive MVP or the MVP of your team, man, that was special for me, man. So,
and to finish third in receptions from him behind the march, as you said, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, and you're number 3 behind them, 401 receptions of your 415 total in your career. When you look back at that, What do you think about that moment and that
Yeah.
distinction that you have?
Yeah, man, it's a tough one too. Everybody, they've been coming for me, Mike. These guys, these young guys have been coming for me, to come and erase or move me down that list, every single time. Like Chris Chambers was really close and he got traded. Jarvis Landry was really close. He got traded. Tyreek Hill was really close in another category. He gets hurt before the season ends. Waddle was going to definitely pass me this year. Waddle gets traded. They keep coming for me, man. So I really covet that position that I have when it comes to the Miami Dolphins history, especially being mentioned among those guys, the Claytons, the Dupers, the Nat Moores, and I mean, it's just a really, really special feeling for me.
I mentioned you have a podcast, you're a radio guy down there as well. Do you put a bug in people's ears when someone's getting close to your records and say, hey, maybe it's time for these guys to move on?
I sure do. I make sure, I was tight with upper management before, I let them know like, yo, and Chris Chambers got traded mid-season. So he would have, by the end of the season, he'd have definitely eclipsed me. So it was crazy, man. But nah, I just think that, they're recognizing somebody that did it the right way. All those guys do it the right way, man. I've just been lucky along the way with that.
All right. Tell me an opponent, when you look across the line, that you knew it was going to be a good day for you and Dan Marino as far as hooking up.
A team or a team. Well,
individual maybe that you like to go.
I'm not stoking any individuals, man, because I don't want them coming for me now. But there are some guys always that you feel like you're feeling pretty good about your matchup that day. But there's some other guys you felt bad about your matchups that day. Playing against Deion Sanders, that was going to be a bad day for me. Playing against Ty Law a lot of times, it's going to be a bad day for me. Playing against guys like Steve Israel, some of those guys that I played against, it's going to be a tough day for me. Honestly, in the league, Mike, everybody's tough, man. Everybody. You don't get to the league, without, being able to ball. I don't care what school you went to. Now, in college, you play against some teams like, you're going to have a hell of a day. You just know, you've seen it on film, but you know what type of team they are. You're going to have but you get in the NFL, man, all those dudes can play. All those dudes can play. So I try to beat them with my mind, beat them with my quickness, beat them with my physicality. That's what I try to beat them with, man. But there's no easy day out there in the NFL. Every Sunday, you better strap it up. You ready to go.
That said, do you have to adjust the way you play and the way you maybe run your routes when you're going up against somebody like a Deion Sanders?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I might as well not even run the route because Danny's not throwing it my way anyways in that situation. So I might as well just, block him, even though it's a pass play. Deion, I mean, he was impossible to beat for a guy like me, not the fastest guy. I'm not the fastest guy out there. He was more off and, it's hard to run routes against Deion Sanders because, for one, you try to step on his toes, try to get up on him, and he's so quick. It's hard to get up on him. Once he gets his hands on you, he can run with anybody easily. So it was tough. So the routes that we'd have to run against Deion would be like now routes. Don't run anything down the field. Just give it to me now and see if he'll make the tackle. And that was far and few between where I got those opportunities for sure.
Who was your guy growing up? Was there somebody receiver-wise that you were trying to emulate once you got into the NFL?
No, I was a running back growing up most of my life. So I was a running back until I got to high school. And the reason I changed to wide receiver in high school for 1 year was because I got back from playing baseball all summer long in Marion. And when I changed high schools, I got there really late. And that was the easiest position for me to learn to going into the season, which was starting in 8 days. So that's why I became wide receiver. But my junior year, I went back to running back. But for me, I grew up on three TV stations, Mike, 4, 6, and 10. And CBS was one of those stations. And CBS was where the Dallas Cowboys played all the time. So I love me some Tony Dorsett. As a running back, I love Tony Dorsett. They played, the 4:00 game every Sunday. They played a lot of Monday night games. Of course, they played on Thanksgiving. So that's basically how they became America's team. So I love Tony Dorsett and the Cowboys. I love the Browns once I moved to Cleveland. But as a little kid, it was always about the Cowboys.
He's a Pitt guy. You can't love him now, right?
Well, I can't now. And Joe Paterno said they only had 2 guys come out of Pitt. That's that Marino and that Dorsett. Those are the only 2 guys. I just love that.
And one, again, you became a teammate with. For you, as you said, the nagging injury forced you to retire in 2001. Did you have more left in the tank? Did you think that, your career was cut shorter than you wanted it to be?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I had more. Like I said, when Jimmy came, I got the new deal. I definitely had more in the tank. But when you hurt your foot as a wide receiver, you're nothing you can do about it. Can't stop, can't go, can't cut. You can't do the things that you need to do to be an effective wide receiver. But for what I did, working inside in the slot, yeah, I could have done that for, I think, forever, man. It would have been, it'd been an easy transition, especially we're getting bigger, faster receivers on the outside.
Yeah,
that would have been an easy transition from the inside. But once my foot was compromised, and I was no good for anybody, including myself.
Well, let's talk about the transition. What was the transition like for you from being a pro athlete to now being retired and forced at a young age to find something else to do? What was that like?
Yeah, it was tough, man. A lot of us, man, we're at such a point, as football players where our whole day is planned out for us.
Yeah.
The schedule is out there every single day. What you're doing this, you're getting there, you're lifting, you're running, you're eating, you're meeting, you're practicing, you're meeting, you're eating. It's like, and then so when I didn't have that schedule, that regimen, it was like, hell, what am I going to do here? And a lot of guys go through it, man. They go through a lot of depression. I went through that. Most people's careers don't end on their own terms. And mine was one of those careers that didn't end on my own terms. And that's the majority of them. Very few guys get to walk away like the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys whenever they want. And it's usually that position that does that. The quarterback position usually has an opportunity to walk away whenever they want. The rest of us, we usually leave because our skill set is not there, we're injured, or whatever it might be. And that was my case, And so at that point, I had to figure something out, but it took me a little while to get going, man. Just pretty much just feeling sorry for myself is what it really boiled down to, man. And I had to snap out of that and start doing some, I did some little radio spots here and there, started doing some TV here and there. And then, pretty much just stuck with just doing radio, had my own show for a little while. That was a grind that I did not anticipate because, how radio shows can be, man.
Yeah.
You might have a 4-hour show or 2 hours. Actually, our show was only 2 hours, but all the prep work you have to do before, everything you have to watch afterwards. I mean, it was a 14-hour day watching sports just to be ready for a 2-hour show, just in case somebody called in and asked a question about certain things. I'm like, nah, this is not for me, And so all I really wanted to do was do something that involved the Dolphins. And that's why I got into doing the podcast with them. That's why I got into doing the radio part with them, just being a part of the team, as close to the field as I can get without actually being on it.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the Fish Tank, your podcast that you host, obviously around the Dolphins, and then you're also the pregame host as well for the games.
Yeah, so the Fish Tank is something that my partner and I, Seth Levitt, started back in 2018. He came to me with an idea of just, we sit in the locker room all the time, and all guys do is they tell stories. That's it. It's not about X and O's. It's about stories on and off the field that were just hilarious or serious or whatever it might be. And he said, we should start interviewing some of the former players. And so we started interviewing guys, and guys just started loving it. It started like catching on, and they started telling their former teammates about it. We started getting more and more guys until we had over 150, 160 guys that we've actually interviewed, for this. And it's just hilarious, man. Guys actually come out of there, a lot of times, you do an interview, Mike, and some guys think I'm trying to catch them doing something. I'm going to bring up this or that. We let them know it's their podcast. We're going to have, my partner, Seth, does a great job of the research. We bring up stuff that they had no idea we knew about. And they say, oh, wow, like, how'd you know that? And that part right there lets us know that we're doing what we intend to do, man. Give these guys a platform, let these guys, tell the world who they are. And it's been so much fun, man. We're still grinding out some interviews. We're doing a lot more live stuff. We're talking a lot more about the current team than we ever did. But that part of there was our bread and butter for a while.
And it's got to scratch an itch for you too, as well. Again, we always hear the locker room, the clubhouse. Being away from that when you retire is what you miss the most. Hearing these stories from these guys in the podcast, does that bring you back to your time in the locker room as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Especially the stories that I was a part of that I remember. Because I'm the one that sometimes I'll say, Seth, we got to ask him about this, and then they'll be like, oh, yeah, Juice, you're the one that, I know you told Seth about that. That is what we miss a lot. I joke all the time, Mike, there's only 2 fun days in football. That's Sundays and paydays. Those are the ones that I think are the fun days. But I'm going to tell you, that locker room banner is it's a lot of fun as well, man. And we do miss it. So every time we get together now, I'm on the Dolphins Alumni Advisory Board. Every time we all get together now, it's the same old, man. It's like we don't miss a beat. we start telling these stories again, man. Some stories I've heard 3 or 4 times. Some of them I've never heard before. It's all great. It's all great laughter, and we just love to kick it like that.
I don't want to get you in trouble, but who's been your best guest that you've had?
Oh man, well, Channing Crowder, we had him on. He had to go to work, and he stayed and stayed and stayed. We had to make 3 episodes out of his because he was having such a great time, and that's kind of how we got it all kickstarted, And then we've had Zonka and Kick and those guys on. We've had Marino on. We've had Tua on. We've had all these guys we've had on, man. But Channing Crowder, I've got to give him the credit for jump starting what we're doing. And now look at him. We got him into the game with the pivot. Yeah. So these guys, he said that nobody really done a podcast. It was 2018. We were at the beginning stage of this whole thing. And I think a lot of guys have started doing podcasts because of that.
Yeah, 2018, you're right. Like now everybody has their own podcast, but you were ahead of your time back then in 2018 getting things started. But again, 9 years all with Miami. You're in the Walk of Fame, named there in 2013. What did that moment mean to you to be recognized by that franchise?
It meant a lot, man. And I'll tell you why it meant so much to me. We talked a lot about my mom and my upbringing, and that was my mom got a chance to come to that ceremony right before she passed, and so see that whole thing come full circle, and for her to be able to witness that, what she had done, every decision she made was the right one for me. It was really, really special, man. And for the Dolphins to recognize some of my contributions, man, very, very special time for me. And they still continue to bless me. The Dolphins really look out for me. Nat Moore, Erica Simmons, our people in our alumni department, man, they're just really great to me. The organization is, even though, we had some rough times at the end, especially when I got hurt and the way that things were handled, they still embraced me ever since, man. So special organization down here. It's why I still live down here. The community's been great for me, great to me. It's just a special area to be.
And I know you've been great for the community as well. You give back to the youth in South Florida. What are some of the things that you've done and continue to do to help out down there?
Yeah, well, I had a foundation for a long time. My mom ran it. We ran a lot of events. We did, golf events. We did bowling events. We do, back to school drives. We bought sneakers for kids. We've done so many different things to give to this community because, my mom always said, we just can't take from the community. You got to give back to it. And that's what we've been doing since day one down here. And so now, since I don't have my own foundation, I support everybody else's foundation. My partner, Seth Levitt, he runs Jason Taylor's foundation. I'll go to Dwight Stevenson's events. I go to, Lawrence Kids. I do all the different things. Now, somebody asked me, there's a charity event, man, that especially since I'm not being, doing my own thing, I'm there if I can make it for sure.
Again, you mentioned your mom. I could tell was a very special person in your life, obviously, and the impact that she had. Is she one of the few people that called you Otis James, or did she call you OJ as well?
Yes, Otis James for sure. She she called me whatever, man, whatever it took to get my attention, or boy, you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, she called me Otis James. Most of it was baby though. Baby, I was a baby. I was her only child, and I acted like it most of the time.
Again, as you have a chance to reminisce and look back at your career, what overall in the NFL stands out in what you've been able to accomplish during your time?
Well, you know what? Just beating the numbers. Average lifespan of the league is 3 years. I got 9 years in. Basically, 7.5 we're playing, a year and a half trying to get back out there on the football field. But having a dream and going for it and going after it, and then when you get the opportunity to bring it to full circle, I mean, it's special. It really is special. Less than 1% of the guys in the world make it to the league, man. And the fact that I got to get into the league and play well. A lot of guys, they get in the league and they're on the teams, but you don't see very much, production out of them. And the fact that I was able to go out there and play well and hopefully make, family, Penn State, Miami Dolphin people, make them all proud. That's important to me because I don't play for myself. I play for everyone else. It seems like for the family, but I love to be on the football field. I was trying to play golf. My body's all messed up, but I was trying to play golf this past weekend, and there's like 20 people at the tee box, and I was nervous as hell, you know. Now, put me out on a football field in front of 80,000 people, that's no problem for me right there. I can handle that all day, you know. So, yeah, I love being on the football field and being able to go out there and try to make some things happen.
Well, currently with the NFL, it seems like there's never an off season. So obviously a lot for you to talk about getting ready for the season. What's your thoughts on the Dolphins coming up this year and what it looks like here in 2026?
Well, it's going to be tough. We're going to be a very young team. We had 13 draft picks, you know, and all those guys will not make the team, but probably 9 or 10 of them will make this football team, and they're going to have to play. You know, a lot of change up front. Obviously, we got a new general manager and John Eric Sullivan. We got a new head coach and Jeff Hafley. And I love that we got the new quarterback and, you know, Malik Willis. I think that the fact that Hafley and Sullivan went for Malik Willis tells me how good he was doing when he was a quarterback, the backup quarterback at Green Bay. So it's going to be some tough sledding. Well, we also have Devon Achane, though. He's a difference maker for anybody. So with quarterbacks and offensive line. So it's going to be a tough one. But if our defense can play well, if we can find a way to run the ball at times, I think we're going to be all right. But, you know, this year is one we're going to take a hit this year. I mean, hell, half our salary cap is dead money, you know, and that's always going to be a problem when you don't have, you know, guys that are actually making all the money on your team. They're on somebody else's team right now or not playing at all. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. But I think this team's going to be pretty good. As long as they can play some good defense, we'll be all right.
Plenty for you to talk about on your shows, on the Fish Tank and everything else. So, again, if I'm watching this, how can I find the Fish Tank if I want to watch the episodes, watch some of those great interviews you've done?
Yeah, every single platform is at the Fish Tank 81. You know, so every single either we have a YouTube channel, it's at the Fish Tank 81. Obviously, we have Instagram and what are those other? Facebook. It's Facebook, right?
Facebook.
Yeah,
X.
All those things. X, you name it, we've got it. That's where we're at the Fish Tank 81. Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
And that's where we find you as well, or you have your own platforms?
No, I'm pretty much on all those, and of course I'm at OJ McDuffie 81. There's all my different handles. So I'm at OJ McDuffie 81 or Fish Tank 81.
There you go. That's awesome. Folks, check it out again, especially if you're a Dolphins fan or just an NFL fan. I'm sure, again, some great interviews that you've done through the years and more coming up. OJ, this has been great to catch up with you. I can't thank you enough for joining us here today and sharing your story. Incredible story. Again, the accomplishments in a short amount of time. You said 9 years, could have been more, but it's longer than some of the other guys out there. Like you said, that shelf life is getting shorter and shorter in the NFL these days.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm blessed, truly blessed, man. And, you know, I'm just happy to be able to share my story, man. So I really appreciate you having me on, Mike.
Another great guest. Our thanks to OJ for spending a little time with us here today and sharing his story once again from Ohio to Penn State. 9 years with the Dolphins and still in Miami working on the Fish Tank podcast. Check it out if you're a Dolphins fan, an NFL fan as well. Great interviews that he and his co-host Seth Levitt conduct there with the Dolphins and the Fish Tank. And again, as always, we thank you for listening and watching and invite you to like, to subscribe, and to share what we're doing. Great guests, a lot of NFL guys right now, but OJ McDuffie, a good one there for us here today. For J.R. Quitman, our creator, producer, and director behind the scenes, I'm Mike Vaccaro. Thanks for watching and thanks to you for listening. We'll see you next time, another episode of In the Front Row. Have a great day, everybody.